Oops, sorry, I forgot kids may be present.
Yeah, it's okay. He had his headphones on. Earmuffs. Earmuffs.
All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Bored as Hell podcast. I'm Adam McDonald with Big Shiny Robot.
And I am Andy Wilson, aka Citizen Bot, also Big Shiny Robot.
And oh boy, we had a week of movies. I think that might about sum up how we feel about the ones we got to see.
They are moving pictures.
They are moving pictures, and that's about the best thing we can probably say about them. So what's really funny is the one day this week I had to choose between going to see Love the Coopers, which I'm going to talk about shortly, and My All-American, which Andy's going to talk about. So we kind of had to choose which cup of Christ was ours, and I chose poorly.
You got the short end of that stick.
Oh my God. Yeah. So Love the Coopers. It's a bit early in the season for a holiday movie. That being said, though,
a bit.
As much as Christmas and holidays and everything has kind of been overrun with commercialism, and it's just become hectic. And some of us who work in industries like retail, it kind of takes the magic out of it because you're just going crazy. All that said, I still love Christmas movies. Christmas Vacation, Christmas Story, Home Alone, The Family Stone, Love Actually. These are movies I can sit down It's a Wonderful Life. Every single year.
Every.
As cliched as some of those movies are, I can still sit down year in, year out, and absolutely love them. In fact, for those who are interested, they just came out with a completely remastered Blu-ray digital copy version of Christmas Vacation. So if you don't own it or want to see the nice spruced up version, now would be the time to pick that up because it's really cheap. So Love the Coopers desperately wants to be included in this list of must-watch holiday movies. The best way I can say it is, from here on out, naughty children should get this movie in their stocking instead of coal. It is absolutely, fantastically, horrendously abysmal, excruciating to watch, and easily one of the worst of the year. And Andy and I are both voting members for the Razzies, and I really hope you see it, not because I wished horrible things on you, but I really want you to understand why this movie is probably worthwhile saying it's the worst movie of the year.
Oh, yeah. Awesome.
I hated it worse than 50 Shades of Grey. I would rather see a double feature of Pixels and the Fantastic Four than to ever experience this movie again. The plot of what there is of it centers around Grandma and Grandpa Cooper, who are played by Diane Keaton and John Goodman, who are both good actors. John Goodman does great things. Diane Keaton, again, one of my favorite actresses. And they're trying to plan one final big Christmas get-together with their kids and her sister and the family because they're going to get a divorce. After 40 years of marriage, they're calling it quits because apparently he wanted to go to Africa for a trip years and years ago, and she said no, and he's bitter, and blah, blah, blah. Who the hell cares?
That's really bleak for a Christmas movie.
Yeah. So they're playing that, and it's okay. So they want to get the family together for Christmas. That's a good storyline. I mean, that happens in, again, we go back to Christmas Vacation. It's all about having the wacky family come in. Except the wacky family are all dumb. Olivia Wilde is their daughter, and she doesn't trust anyone and just is looking for signs of affection between other people because her fiance cheated on her and she found out. So she's coming back home from the airport, and she's stuck there for, I don't know why, because she doesn't know how to drive. I don't know. They never explain why she's hanging out at the airport. And she meets this soldier, Jake Lacey, who's going off to Afghanistan, going off to war. And immediately starts berating him because he's a conservative and makes fun of him because he's going to go put his life on line for the country. I don't know why you would do that. But for some reason, he thinks it's charming and just thinks, oh, well, let's hang out and talk some more. Maybe I'll fall in love with you. And so she convinces him to come home to pretend to be her boyfriend because her mom will give her crap if she comes home alone because she's getting older now and she'll be married, or I don't know why. It's never explained.
Time out. if you came home when like, oh hey, here's my boyfriend that I've never told you about, don't you think you'd get like more crap from your parents? That
Oh,
like,
and it gets better too. The moment they get home, he's like, "Oh, and we're engaged."
oh jeez.
Yeah, it's. Okay, so that's that one thing. Ed Helms is the other son. He just got divorced from Lois from Family Guy, and he's upset because he has no job and can't pay alimony. But we don't care because he's annoying. Marissa Tomei is Diane Keaton's sister, who is a habitual shoplifter. She gets caught stealing something, gets arrested, and she's being taken to jail by a cop played by Anthony Mackie, the Falcon. We like Anthony Mackie. He was one of the better parts of our Brandis Crisis.
Yeah.
So he's taken her to jail, and all of a sudden she decides, because she's a life coach, to start dissecting his personality. And there's this whole scene where he opens up and explains how he's gay and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And then, because why the hell not, he lets her go and lets her go home to family Christmas. It doesn't matter if she's being taken to jail for shoplifting.
I'm just sitting here sighing, listening to you explain this. Like, I can't imagine actually sitting in a theater watching this.
Everyone is just so nasty and childish and selfish, and everything that Thanksgiving, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Christmas, all the holidays wrapped into one. It's the antithesis of what real families are. I mean, yes, all families have problems. Everyone has issues. But these people are just, if you met them on the street, you'd want to slap them just walking by, hearing their conversation. They're all horrible people. And the best part, I haven't even told you the best part yet. It's being narrated, kind of like Christmas Story was. And Steve Martin is the voice of the narrator. And spoiler alert, because I really don't give a crap, it's the family dog.
Wait, what?
The family dog is the omniscient narrator who says what's going on, despite the fact the dog's home the whole time, and 90% of this movie doesn't take place in the house.
Well, dogs are pretty magical, especially at Christmas time. So
it was like the writers went and read too many bad Dean Koontz novels and came at the end like, let's have the dog narrate, because reasons. It's bad. I mean, we were sitting there, and both Eddie and I were just like, oh my God, this is horrible. And in the middle of it, and I'd lost track of time, thinking hopefully it was almost over, because at an hour and 48 minutes, it's way too long. Brooks, who we all know from being on the show, leaned back, he whispers, "We're only 50 minutes in." And I used some very vulgar language that I'm sure the old biddies next to me were not very happy about, but I don't care. This movie is horrible. There's no plot. The actors are slumming. I'm assuming they were blackmailed into being in this movie. It's not good. Do not go see this. This movie will make you hate Christmas, hate your family, and possibly your dog. 0 out of 10. This is abysmal. It's horrible. It's the worst thing I've seen all year.
Wow. Okay, so question/prediction. Does Ed Helm sing?
No, because he's only in the movie for all of 2 minutes. He's got 3 scenes, and he only has 5 lines.
Oh, so he doesn't continue his streak of contractually obligated, unnecessary songs in a comedy movie. Oh,
no,
well.
He doesn't.
Oh, well.
Although Alan Arkin's in it, and Alan Arkin and John Goodman were fantastic in Argo.
Yeah.
And Alan Arkin, I believe he's the great-grandfather. Couldn't really figure that out. And he's hitting on Amanda Seyfried, who's this waitress at this cafe he goes to. And he gets angry because she is leaving to move somewhere. And then he professes her love for her. Oh, and I forgot about this part. So he professes his love for her, and all of a sudden the narrator pops up and says she can see him now, through her eyes, what he would have looked like at her age. And it's some douchebag hipster dude with like a beard and a man bun. And there's a couple scenes where there's involved some teenage kids who are trying to hit on a girl for the first time and get his first kiss. And the narrator says, oh, and he literally froze and shattered. And then his character, with really bad CGI, literally freezes and shatters. This happens twice in the movie. For no good damn reason. Like, I could spend another hour. I could probably spend the running time of the movie dissecting this and saying how bad it is. And I think we should one day sit down, you and I, and riff it. and actually do an episode where we just sit and rip on this movie. And that episode will be not safe for kids. It'll not safe for work because this movie is that horrible. Shame on everyone in it. They should all be punched in the gonads.
Wow. That just sounds like a cliche wrapped in tropes, wrapped in awfulness. So, Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, mother effers.
So, speaking of cliches,
and apparently this was at least a better cliche from what I saw.
This is a better cliche from the writer of Hoosiers and Rudy. So he's got a good pedigree.
And I love Rudy. So
yeah, written and directed in this case. We have My All-American, which is the true story of little Freddie Steinmark. Yeah, literally little Freddie Steinmark. The whole point is he's too little to play football, so you get a little bit of the Rudy. But
Freddie.
He works so hard, and he has so much heart, and he understands the plays, and he practices so hard, and so he just exceeds everyone's expectations.
But see, I have lots of heart, and I try really, really hard, and I will never be a Broadway performer. So that's just me. But yeah, continue. Sorry, I'm just
no. So this is a true story. This was back in the late 60s. Freddie Steinmark played for the University of Texas, and I will tell you right now that the screening that I went to of this was hosted by the Texas X's, which is the alumni group for the University of Texas. And, I sometimes put like content warnings or trigger warnings on movies. If you are a fan of Texas A&M, the University of Oklahoma, or any other team, and you really hate Texas football, you're going to hate this movie.
Oh, I will never see it then.
It plays like an hour and a half long recruiting movie for UT and how amazing they are and how great their football team is, even though this was back in the late 60s, early 70s. It is very cliche riddled, as I mentioned, from the basics of the story of, oh, he's the little guy, but he has so much heart. But this is literally the opening of the movie. Present day, beautiful helicopter shot over the University of Texas campus. And I'm like, oh, that's my backyard. I love it. I can see my work office from there. Yay. And a little doe-eyed reporter for the Daily Texan walks into the offices of the athletic department to talk to Aaron Eckhart in old man makeup and saying, you were one of the best coaches that the University of Texas has ever had. And who was the best All-American player you ever had? And he's like, well, the best player I ever had was Freddie Steinmark. But coach, Freddie Steinmark wasn't one of your All-Americans. No, I guess he wasn't. But if every player played like Freddie Steinmark, then and you cut back to 1960 Colorado and see him growing up, and it's just like, that was the worst opening of any serious movie I've ever seen. And it's too bad because there's a lot good in here, and this is actually a good story, a good true story, that if it had been told a little bit better, it might have been a better movie, which is kind of too bad. But the story is very cliched, and I feel bad, like, not caring about the emotional ending to it, because it bordered on being really hackneyed. But since it was a true life story, I feel bad saying that like, oh, your life was a cliche, Freddie Steinmark. But yet, so I don't know. It was incredibly predictable to me exactly where this movie was going. And I think you can kind of guess if I tell you it's a cliched sport movie that there are one of two possible endings for this movie. Adam, would you like to guess what those two endings possibly are for a cliched sports movie?
Either he becomes an all-star or he dies and everyone remembers him and fights on.
One of those is the answer.
I think we all know the answer. 'Cause
Yeah, and if obviously if you went and looked at like the Wikipedia page for all of this, then you would know what the true story
or even maybe the beginning of your review.
Yeah. So anyway, but this was a it wasn't so much a bad movie, but the cast is kind of unremarkable with the exception of Aaron Eckhart. There's really not anyone else in here that you're going to recognize. You've got Robin Tunney, who was in The Craft and Empire Records and The Mentalist. So, I mean, if you're like a big fan of hers, but she plays Freddie's mom. And the guy playing Freddie, if you were a fan of American Horror Story Hotel, he was in that season, Finn Wittrock. But yeah, if you haven't been paying attention, he's not a bad actor. Most of the kids in this movie are not bad actors, but they definitely made this movie for little to no budget, and the fact that the highest named actor in it is Aaron Eckhart, who is hardly a household name, tells you exactly what you need to know about it. That being said, I love Aaron Eckhart.
Oh yeah, Thank You for Smoking is one of my favorite movies ever. So
yeah, and we gotta stick together. Me and Aaron, Cougar alumni. There we go. So anyway, not a great movie, not a horrible movie. Lots of cliches. So I ended up at like a 4 out of 10.
So it almost sounds like you're saying this is kind of like an after-school special that should have been on TV, but ended up on the big screen.
Not only should have been on TV, should have been on the University of Texas like promotional materials that they send out to like tell you what a great school that they are. Like, it feels almost like a propaganda piece. Which, I mean, if you take college football that seriously, you might see it that way. I remain agnostic about that, even though the University of Texas is the home team here in town. So
this is very true. Yes.
Yeah.
I've been there one time to see Avenue Q, so I can say one of the geekiest thing I could possibly do on the University of Texas campus was to go see a musical about puppets. So, so actually that segues very nicely into the 33, which is based on the 2010 Chilean mine disaster when the mine collapsed and the miners were stuck inside for a very, very long time. Everyone had given up on them for being dead, but they managed to survive against the odds, ration their food out, very, very, skeleton, bare bones rations. Eventually, they were able to dig through, get to them, get them food and water, and then eventually rescue them from the mines. I think we all kind of remember that story. It was pretty remarkable that these people were able to live so long in the depths of the earth when there was no hope. So the 33 is the big screen telling of that story. And despite the fact that there are some big names, well, at least one big name, Antonio Banderas, it really feels like a made-for-TV movie that, for some odd reason, they decided to put in thousands of screens across America. So Antonio Banderas plays Mario Sepulveda. He ended up being kind of the leader of the miners who are trapped down there. But the movie starts out, the day before. I think they're at someone's quinceañera or something like that, and kind of introduces us to all the different characters. Antonio Banderas is a loving husband. One of them, his wife's going to have a kid soon. The other one's, he's cheating on his wife, that old bastard kind of thing, and everyone loves him, and his mistress and his wife, fight over him, but both love him, and it's all very cliched. One guy's going to retire in 2 weeks. So they kind of have this lame attempt to get us to like these characters before, they go to the depths of the mine. There's a cave in, and they're trapped, and they might die. So it's a really lame attempt to get us to like them, I guess is the nicest way to say that. But yeah, so they're stuck down there, and they're trying to survive, and they somehow made it to the shelter. But of course, because this is down in South America, there was really lax security in the mine, lax preparation. So when they get to the kit that's there for miners who are trapped in a cave-in, there's like 3 cans of tuna, some biscuits, very little water. Basically, they have enough supplies to last, I think, 10 men for 5 days. And there's 33 of them.
I'm going to interrupt you there because let's just remember that even in American mines, we do not have a very good record with safety and mining disasters. So,
oh no, this is very true.
But yeah,
but that's kind of that's the whole thing. They're really pushing hard, and actually, I'll explain kind of in the epilogue how that plays into the story. So they're down there trying to find some way to survive, saying, hey, they'll come for us, they'll come for us. Anyways, the Ministry of Mining for Chile is up there. He's joined by Gabriel Byrne, who we all know from the Usual Suspects. He's there as one of the best drillers on Earth to drill down, get to where they are, and get them food and water and whatever they need. Needless to say, we all know the story. They do actually get down there. They do keep them alive. They eventually get them out. And everyone's happy, and and it was a big day. I mean, I'm not going to downplay the fact that these 33 men really went through hell and survived and came out, to be alive. Nowadays, that's a huge thing, because like you mentioned, even up here when there have been cave-ins, we've lost people, we've lost miners, and so the fact that they were able to pull together and survive is pretty cool. The problem with this whole movie, though, is it's so undeniably, dreadfully boring. Like I mentioned with Love the Coopers, when Brooks leaned over and said, we're 50 minutes in, he did the same thing with this movie. He's like, we have an hour left. This movie should have been a documentary. I mean, obviously, there weren't cameras down there. We couldn't have filmed what was going on. There are some scenes where they put a computer down there so they somehow got a computer down there through a tiny hole. I don't know how they did that. So the miners could Skype with their friends, loved ones. And how they got internet, they don't really explain either. So it's a fictionalized retelling of a real event that was, a really cool thing for humanity to be that, hey, this happened, they survived. The reason why I brought up the whole unsafe mining thing was in the epilogue, they actually show all 33 miners who are still alive to this day and explain that, they did sue the mining company saying, hey, you had, they had these security features. They in the movie, they show these mirrors they put up or glass that when the rocks, shift or the mountain shifts a certain way, they break. And it's almost like the way of bringing a canary in the mine was that this is a warning sign that things are shifting. Be careful because things could collapse. And it was overlooked. They also said, hey, we got down there was no supplies for us, so we think that you should owe us some money for what happened. And they actually went to court and they lost. So
what?
That was they lost.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was kind of a big deal. And I'll have to go research this, so please take this with a grain of salt. But from what I heard, the same thing's happening with this movie. That even with this movie, the miners aren't getting paid what they should. Again, this is a total grain of salt. I heard it from another critic friend of mine, so I have to actually go through and vet it. But if that's the case, don't go see this movie. I mean, that's just a horrible thing to say about anything. This movie was made to shine a light on their tragedy and what they went through, and even that's not benefiting them. It could be some deal they had, like they have a back end deal. Who knows what it is? Again, I haven't fully researched it, but yeah, it's overall it's really slow paced. It's very boring. They make you try to care about the characters. It should have been a documentary, or at the very least, a made for TV movie. So like you are with My All American, I'm at a 4 as well.
Wow. I'm going to have to hold my tongue on most of this because professionally I have opinions about coal and coal mining. So, but that does not sound like a intriguing movie, and it's it's unfortunate that, I when I first heard about this, I'm like, I don't really want to go see a movie about this. This just happened a few years ago. I don't really need a movie of it. And
Hmm.
then I saw the trailer and I'm like, hmm, Antonio Banderas looks pretty good. That looks like it might be pretty interesting. That's very sad to hear that they didn't even capture like because I remember when this was going on, like the day-to-day updates and like, oh, they're gonna rescue them, but it's gonna be a week or whatever.
Hmm.
It was a big deal. I mean, it was the same thing as like when the oil rig exploded in the Gulf, the Deepwater Horizon, and like every day we're looking at you know what the update was on the disaster, except with this it's people. And
Hmm.
um so that's really sad that they weren't able to capture that human drama. It seemed like that should have been a slam dunk.
Yeah, and there were some interesting things. Like there's a part when they're all together waiting to be actually rescued from the cave in, where but they do have communication with the service, and all of a sudden, they're learning that Antonio Banderas' character has been offered a book deal, uh, and they're all like, "Well, why are you offered this? Like, why aren't we being taken care of?" Because he was the one who kind of stood up as the leader for what was going on down there. So there are a few good parts thrown in. There's kind of a fun scene where they're all down there eating their very last little bit of what's essentially tuna water. I mean, they have no food, so they each get like 1 ounce of tuna, and they're all there and kind of fantasizing about being at this big table with their loved ones, and their wives or girlfriends or kids are bringing them their favorite food to eat. And it was actually kind of a joyful scene, which was a nice kind of break from everything that was happening. It was unnecessary, but at least it was something different than just people sitting there, you know, being mopey or no, we'll survive. And yeah, again, it's if you want to see it, go rent it, pick it up at Redbox. It's not a horrible movie. It was definitely the best one I saw this week, if that is any consolation. But yeah, it should have been on Lifetime or something.
Wow. Well, that is just so disappointing. I mean, I understand that the box office has not been very good for the last month and a half. I understand that now, Bond actually had a big opening and Peanuts
Oh
did
yeah, like
too.
what 75 mil, I think.
Yeah, they both did extremely well and made up for some of those losses, but the fact that both of those movies are out there, you'd think that at least something would have come out that was just even above mediocre, and not horrible. So that's truly disappointing.
It was actually really funny because I saw this last week or the week before because we had an early screening, and one of our friends went and saw it the day after Love the Coopers, and he was like, "Oh, this movie's gonna be horrible." And then afterwards, he texted me like, "Actually, it wasn't that bad. It was like a decently made for TV movie." I'm like, "You're only saying that because you saw Love the Coopers yesterday, and this one's so much better in comparison." He's like, "Yeah, you're actually 100% right."
Well, I am grateful that I was in beautiful, scenic Athens, Ohio on Monday instead of in my screening of Love the Coopers, which I gladly missed in retrospect.
Yeah, it was. We'll stop talking about Love the Coopers because I will go on a rant again. So let's just say don't go see that one. Mile American and the 33 are kind of eh. We were trying to think of a good recommendation for this week, but like you said, you've been traveling. I've been busy with work. But you actually did come up with kind of an interesting
I,
recommendation, which
I've
is
got a recommendation. Go back and listen to last week's episode. Um, I rarely am like, oh wow, we really did a good job with this thing. I think last week us talking about the Peanuts movie and Spectre, that was a really good episode. Go go listen to that.
yeah. So not to toot our own horn, but we are. Every now and then we do have an episode that I think even we're proud of, and I know we're both our own harshest critics. So check it out. And then at the same time, if you haven't seen the Peanuts, it's great. I've actually kind of warmed up a bit more to the thought of Spectre. I'm still not changing my score, but again, like if you read our roundtable review on Big Shiny Robot, a mediocre Bond movie, at least in my opinion, is better than no Bond movie. So
Yeah.
at least it was fun. It had some exciting moments. So yeah, check out last week's episode if you haven't yet. It's a lot of fun. And then go watch Peanuts or Spectre. So yeah, that'll do it for this week. Next week, everything's kind of afraid of the big movie, which is The Hunger Games: Mockingjay Part 2.
Darn right.
Which finally finishes up the whole Hunger Games series. I think we're all pretty excited to see how that turns out, especially having read the books. I know how it ends. I think we actually will have a lot to talk about with that. And the other big one is going to be Legend. It's a gangster biopic starring Tom Hardy as dual roles. And then there's also The Night Before, which is the holiday comedy, naughty comedy featuring Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Seth Rogen, and Anthony Mackie. So that'll do it for this week.
Two holiday movies with Anthony Mackie back to back. Hopefully, this one is better than the last one.
It can't be worse. I'm very surprised. So that's it for this week. We'll see you back here next week. Hail Satan, and have a lovely afternoon.